Thank you for joining us. In our first story, government has suspended several crucial social intervention programs, including the Livelihood Empowerment Against Poverty (LEAP), benefits for lifeline consumers of electricity, subsidies on petroleum products, and road arrears. This is because government made no allocation to the sector in the 2017 first quarter budget approved by Parliament last week. Parliament approved almost 11 billion cedis for the first quarter expenditure of 2017. But JoyNews checks reveal there is no allocation to the social protection sectors. Member of the Finance Committee, Dr. Makasibe tells JoyNews those benefiting from the intervention will have to find alternate sources of income.
It's serious because I can understand it when it's zero for utilities and petroleum. I can understand that one is zero. But social protection, so LEAP is zero here. Yeah. So if you expect to receive some LEAP payments in the first 3 months, the government is saying no. Okay, so all those social protections that we have for the vulnerable, they are being taken off.
And the issue about the lifeline for those on electricity, it means that they will no longer
it's gone. Yeah, so now regardless of your income, you pay the same for utilities.
Dr. Sibeyabwa is also questioning the amount allocated for goods and services, which is less than 1% of the money allocated for appropriation. According to him, people will be paid for doing nothing in the public sector.
Now what it means is that we are going to pay workers for doing nothing, okay, because the goods and services refers to the fuel that will run in vehicles, the paper that will buy for desktop, all the things that you need to work in the office. And what is going to goods and services here is less than 1%. Now compensation of employees is taking 35%, and the interest and loan repayments is taking 29%. So in essence, we are going to pay workers to sit idle and do nothing, no productivity. And what is even strange is that we are still borrowing. The 11 billion revenue coming is only 8.8. So we are even borrowing to meet these statutory payments.
But Finance Minister Seth Tekpe says payment is only going into critical areas of the economy.
Our approach, as the report indicated, is to meet only critical expenditure for the first quarter. Those critical expenditure obviously is compensation. You can't defer the payment of compensation to public sector employees, debt service commitments. So we are meeting this in full. When it comes to goods and services, capital expenditure, we are taking only critical expenditures to run the government for the quarter. For that first quarter as well, it is also important to note that revenues are just trickling in, and therefore you often borrow. And we have a principle of not borrowing to finance recurrent expenditure. So if you can defer recurrent expenditure into second, third, and fourth quarters when your revenues would have picked up, then that is what you do. So that explains the low level of some of the figures which will be, ramping up. We've also made provision for statutory fund payments, which are legislative, but even there, where it is paid quarterly in arrears, we do not pay in advance. We defer and wait for the quarter when it is deferred to raise the funds. This is one of the techniques we have actually been using to reduce the debt ratio. As I said, it was expected that the debt would have ballooned to about 99%. We all know that it tapered off between 68 and 72% over a 2-year period, and then has started, the stock itself has started to decline. And we expect that it to decline, as I explained, because of the fact that Ghana is going back to growth, and the denominator, which is your debt to GDP ratio, would increase.
Let's do some analysis on this. I'm joined on the line now by Eric Odro Osai. He's the Dean, Institute of Local Government Studies. Good morning to you, sir. Thank you for joining us. Hello, Dr. Osai. Can you hear me? Great. So we've lost him on the line. We're trying to get in touch with him. But what it is that you remember last week the Finance Minister presented a budget for the first quarter of 2017. Parliament approved almost 11 billion of that budget before, which was presented on the floor of the House. And of course, we are learning that a chunk of that money is going into payment of consolidation for public sector workers, as well as debts that have been incurred. And of course, we're also learning that that because of this, some social intervention programs have been scrapped, and we want to do some analysis on this. And Eric Odro-Osai is the Dean, Institute of Local Government Studies. He joins me live on the line. Doctor, good morning to you, sir. Thank you for joining us.
Good morning, my sister.
Great. Looking at what we are learning, are these social interventions so important? Are they not so important to be sacrificed?
Thank you very much. Social interventions are very important, looking at the nature of our economy and the type of country we have. Now, when you look at the way disbursements of social interventions expenditure are made, they are made after the first quarter. For instance, if you look at the Digital Assembly's Common Fund or even the LEAD or any other social intervention, the first disbursement would have to go in the first week of April. The reason being that the resources will have to be mobilized by the revenue generating agencies in the first quarter before the money can be made available. Now, the expenditure in appropriation that the Honorable Minister presented to Parliament, my understanding is that it is for critical recurrent expenditure that cannot wait the transition after any election, so that the government machinery, the critical elements of government machinery can run. But we all know that when it comes to social intervention expenditure, it is normally incurred after the first quarter. That is when the revenue has been mobilized.
So for you, you're saying that this is not really something new?
No, I think it's not something new. If you understand public expenditure management, you would understand that the first quarter of every fiscal year is a lean season, or it's a lean period for revenue mobilization. So after you mobilize the revenue, then you disperse it. So that, for instance, the Digital Assembly Common Fund, for instance, the first disbursement will have to go in the first week of April, and that is after the first quarter. The reason is that the revenue or the resources will have to be mobilized in the first 3 months before the money can be made available. The expenditure and appropriation that the Honorable Minister presented to Parliament is in anticipation of critical government expenditure needed for the government machinery to run, taking into consideration the outcome of the upcoming election. So I don't think the fact that it is not in the estimates submitted by the Minister for Finance, it means that we are not giving priority to it. We are giving priority to it, but I think that the Minister is not prepared to tie any government hand until the government comes to us. So that is how it is not a problem. It is not as if it will not be done. I think adequate provisions may have been made to allow the LEAP and the other systems to run up until such a time that the required amount can be dispersed in the first week.
Not necessarily, Doctor, because we heard a member of the Finance Committee telling us that those who are unable to get the money within this period will have to find alternative sources of making income. And you're talking about a government that is seen as a socialist party, and let's bear in mind this is not just an ordinary year. This is an election year as well.
Yes, I can understand. I don't expect the government to leave the system vacant. I don't expect the government to leave the LEAP beneficiaries suffering within this period. I believe that they should have taken certain steps to protect the LEAP beneficiaries within this period. But if you look at this strictly from the public expenditure management system, they are supposed to get it from the first week of April. So yes, I agree with you. The government is touted as a social democratic government. So I would expect the government to prioritize it and find an alternative means, or even make adequate provision in advance from other sources, otherwise than what the minister has submitted to Parliament, to enable the LEAP beneficiaries to continue to survive. Because we cannot also leave them like that in the first 3 months. They cannot suffer because of our politics in this country.
And indeed, Doc, you are a governance expert as well as a political scientist. Looking at this, it's already out there. People who are poor in the villages expecting that at least within these 3 months, as usual, they will get their monies. Now they are hearing that within the first 3 months of next year, they may not get the monies they need. Do you think that 2 months to elections, this could in a way affect the government in terms of votes in any way?
Yeah, definitely. Of Gender and Social Protection, the ministry that is responsible for the management of the LEAP, does not come out with a communique and then explain matters to the people, it is likely to affect the government because they think that is the problem for them. So I found the Ministry of Gender and Social Protection to come out clearly on the modalities they need, so that within this period, the first quarter of 2017, the lead beneficiaries and other beneficiaries of the existing social intervention program will not suffer. Else, if they get to know that they are going to suffer in the next year, it can affect the government in terms of.
And of course, let's wrap up this conversation, Dr. One of the main responsibilities of a government is to protect the poor and vulnerable in society. And so, moving ahead, what do you think could be done to ensure that every transition year, you know, something like this will not happen, where the poor that people are looking forward that they should be protected are rather, you know, put on this side?
I think government should prioritize the needs of the poor. Government should not play politics with social intervention. Government adequate provisions are made in between transitional periods so that the average Ghanaian that is poor and so much on government will not suffer.
Thank you very much, Dr. Odro Osai. He is the Dean of the Institute of Local Government Studies. Let's move on to other stories. And a few days after JoyNews reported on the bad state of the Asokore Mampong Road, rehabilitation work has begun. The road has been in deplorable state for nearly a decade, exposing life and property to danger. Prince Apia, who filed the report, went back to the community to gauge the mood of residents at the start of work.
I'm back on the Asokore Mampong stretch of road, which few days ago was in a very deplorable state. But the narrative is changing because as I speak to you, contractors have begun work on this particular stretch of road. Residents, yes, are very excited about the fact that their headache, which is this road, is being fixed finally. But their worry is if it's not one of those promises to woo them to vote.
A day after you discovered the story that the contractor came and started working. So we are grateful to you. May Allah bless you.
Because not time photos no one na ma yanka sam mukran ye nyadwuma nye ka bia mpese obefa ka mu bia mpese obefa this bia ka dada bia omo load junction no ma be se no ma kone se nti ka dada ka mu bia opese ofa ha bia ro so kwan ne nye ntnya de obetima fa but omo ba so omo ba be dwiru kwan na ye kwan no ampa me bi so omo so ba be 2 weeks ta omo betima wie kwan nti no kwa ama me ni agipa se omo be ye kwan na ma
omo ma koma dia che live if the kwan se nye ne kwan se ya compressor MPO fear abagwanzu fear senya bobe pan ya beto a umpe vote a nkomu fear
achapa ba etias ni de bia ya compare MP for no say bia biti say bia anka election dia na uba ba ya kwan etias ni de bia ya ba ya tiasa ya tumi dasa adwuma mba
pass here former is not good at all because the road is totally bad. We spray our absorbers, our car tires, all of them spoil it because of the road I came here. My absorber spoil, I come and change it. So if they can't make it as a politics, they will do it fast for us.
I spoke to the municipal chief executive of the Asokore Mampong Municipal Assembly, Nuhu Hamidan, and this is what he has to say.
And you will not say that because elections are coming, the work that you have to do, you hold on and do it after election. The road is almost a kilometer. The drains are already there. It's just surfacing. I believe that maximum 1 month, a kilometer of road by standards should be completed.
But the question though is if authorities will be committed to fix this road completely. My name is Prince Apia, JoyNews, Abu Abo.
You're watching News Desk on JoyNews on Multi TV.